Hello, everyone, and welcome. I have today Justin Rubnarin, who is also a quant and an MFE graduate. And I thought it would be a good thing to have a quant talk to us, and he's doing a bunch of interesting things. I will let him explain what is it that he's on and what he does. But I guess the topic is really AI and how it's being used currently and his views on AI and let's explore AI in a quant space, essentially. Justin, welcome.
Hey, Dr. Zoro, thank you again for having me on the show. This is an incredible opportunity, but correct. I graduated from the University of Miami with a degree in mathematics finance. I'm a partner at Limitless Capital. We're focused on the global equity space. And, yeah, I would love to dive into a conversation of how I've used AI personally, its potential impact on the space, and what's going, the next steps, so to say.
Great. So when we say AI, what do we actually mean, practically speaking? How do you actually use it in your day to day?
All right, so I would say there is a variety of ways. AI, I understand it is a broad, all-encompassing term. How I use it in my day-to-day activities, specifically for financial or quantitative stuff. Now, let me be upfront, it's not a solicitation or financial advice, but I really do think AI is going to change things. And the way it's going to change things is, you know, let's say if you wanted to analyze any sort of security asset, etc. How would you have done that in the past? All right, you would probably go, uh, check fundamentals or whatever investment thesis or processes you use. But for the most part, maybe outside of some programmatic elements, it's quite a manual process, so to say. Um, Things have changed quite significantly. So the problem with that being, at the end of the day, that takes quite a bit of time. You do have to understand what you're doing, right? To be able to formulate your investment thesis, kind of carry out your roles and responsibilities for whatever you're doing. But people make mistakes. Programs make mistakes. Not to say AI does not make mistakes, but utilization of AI in the capacity of, hey, it allows those who truly know their craft, whether it is finance or various other fields, to quickly speed up their work, to make decisions more faster, to get information more quickly. And I think if I were to, if you were to take one thing away from this, AI allows users, people, I would say, to get information much more quickly than, I don't know, pre 2019. And I realize, as a whole, AI has been around for quite some time, but I'm more or less alluding to this LLM craze. So, how do I use AI on a day-to-day basis? Just today, in fact. I really like when you can talk to it with a voice note. You can debate, so to say, trade ideas, financial ideas. Hey, tell me about company XYZ. What are their latest earnings? All right, let's debate. Let's look through their statements line by line. I have a problem with the goodwill line. Let's just say, for example, and then we just debate hours, maybe not hours. Yeah, that's an exaggeration. But the idea is, had I had to done that manual research, right? Say I want to itemize this one goodwill item, I don't know, 3 years ago. That would take a lot of manual research, I would think. A lot of finding PDFs, scanning through everything, reading, and you still have to do that process. You still have to know where to go. But with I can quickly, all right, let's find it. Boom. It points me in the right direction. Trust but verify, of course. You verify its results, and then we debate. And by debating, it sometimes provides me new information I didn't even think about. Like let's solution some ideas. You know, if we're looking at a technical chart or just raw data, in fact, too, it's very good at data analysis. So all in all, it helps experienced users or maybe even unexperienced users quickly glean information, understand it quickly, and facilitate a faster, more efficient decision-making process. I would say so.
So I like what you're saying. It's basically you're not replacing, but you are enhancing
Correct.
what you're doing. But I guess let's talk about the enhancing part. but you need that's a skill now that you need to develop to be able to enhance your work.
Mhm.
What does that entail? What did you learn in the process on how to? So you're right. Instead of spending all that time in PDF file, you're not spending that time there. You're spending it somewhere else. So you have to learn how to
Mhm.
enhance your work. How does that work?
Yeah, interesting point. Uh, yeah, on enhancing your work, right? Let's break it down, kind of going back to that. Let's just say examining a Goodwill item, so to say, just for lack of a better example. Um, Enhancing my work. So surface level, of course, right? As I already mentioned, you're getting information faster. You're able to make decisions more quickly. By doing that, you're also saving time. Now, as far as enhancing work, right? Just think back. I mean, maybe professors or you know yourself, like what would you have to have done manually to essentially get to your same decision process, so to say? If you had an investment thesis, so to say, or if you were supervising clients, um, you have to be prudent, of course. Now, how would you have normally done it, right? Now, you take all your clients, understand their investment objectives, risk tolerance, time horizons, etc. I know I'm switching examples. Apologies. But to be prudent, right, you take that all into account, and to the best of your knowledge or your team's knowledge, you would hopefully make investment decisions on their behalf. Now, manually, you would still probably do this to a certain point. But with AI, you've enhanced your ability to be a better, more prudent steward of, I guess, other people's capital. I mean, we're going with this example. Um, Going back to what it was before. All right, you manually research, say, various securities. Uh, to the best of your knowledge, try to match various investments based on your clients' needs and uh, investor profile, so to say. With AI now, let's talk about the enhancing portion. How did you enhance that process? Okay, so now I have my client list. I know who they are. I know their risk tolerances. I know their time horizons. I know a lot about them. Now, of course, uh, what's the proper term? Client privilege, so to say. Don't over disclose to AI, of course, but use it to help solution such that, okay, I have a client. He has a roughly 10-year time horizon. He's seeking, I don't know, capital preservation. He's currently investing in XYZ. I kind of know him from, you're describing your situation. Say we're talking to the AI. Okay, sure. Client X is, he seems like this type of investor. This is what he's currently doing. How could we enhance, you know, how can we help him? If his objective is capital preservation, what do we do? Maybe it's a simple example, but yeah, just little things like that. How do you enhance it? Solution with AI, debate with it, understand it, have it source. Like, okay, if we're gonna maybe let's diversify into some other investments, securities, whatnot that could help with capital preservation. All that to say, to enhance your workflow really depends on your workflow, but you use it to glean information to get it more quickly to make decisions to your particular problem case. AI can speed up that process exponentially.
And are you using? I mean, did you take a course on how to use AI, or you just kind of because some of the stuff you do is very specific, right? You just because maybe
Yeah.
the course doesn't exist. I mean, it is prompt engineering, but that's different, right? It's how do you? Because I know sometimes when I'm in a class and I say, how am I going to use AI, right? In the classroom, students have their laptop open. I realize, wow, it's a lot easier to just tell them, hey, who was Arthur Burns and what did he do? I don't know,
Mhm.
this guy. Well, look at it. And I found that it allows us to be more, we could discuss more topics, we could expand into many areas. And I noticed that I save a lot of time. I could explore more topics that I would in the past, because in the past it would say, well, I don't know. Well, let me tell you who he is, blah, blah, blah. But it takes time to explain. Well, they could just directly. Plus, I found that I found that the students are more active. They feel more in tune now as part of the class. So I had to, there was no class on that. You had to learn on how to use it.
Yeah, excellent point too, right? Is there a course for it? Yeah, to your point, I'm sure there is. Prompt engineering for, I know we've been sticking on this example of like debating your ideas, but we can get truly granular too. I want to hit on this point first, and I'll get back to that. So, you know, debating AI, that's one, or when I say AI, I mean LLMs at large. Now, if you want to get granular, right, there's more, I guess, nuanced or niche cases. Say, I mean, I don't want to too much product placement. If you were to use the primes, I guess, your OpenAI's Codex or Anthropic's, the Claude Code, you can get extremely detailed. If you want to feed your AI like options data, like down to the microsecond, you can have it analyze things very quickly, get ideas on like, all right, this is how the tape is moving, so to say. Analyze this. What's going on? Where's the volume? What's happening? What are the deltas? What is the portfolio? You could get a lot more granular than just debating. Now, to your point, there's no what the reason I'm saying that is to your point about is there a course? How do you learn this? It truly depends on the problems for, I would like to think it depends on the problem set you're working with. If you were just a portfolio manager, say, so to say, you have, I don't know, clients, maybe you just use it to debate ideas. If you're a quantitative trader, debt capital markets trader, maybe you use it to formally analyze numerical data. Of course, trust but verify, but it can allow you, it's really suited to your problem set. The ironic part is, yes, there's courses on prompt engineering, and there's probably courses that are just far more detailed, particularly on these more nuanced or niche applications like Cloud Code or whatnot. And the ironic part is you can have AI teach you how to use it. So am I going to recommend courses or whatnot? I can't say so for sure, but the resources are out there. I would say first, what are you working on? What is your problem set? And then maybe, you can be steered towards whether it's maybe just online courses or whatnot, or very niche documentation. To your point about your students, it's interesting too, because I went through the Masters of Mathematical Finance problem for program throughout this kind of heyday of AI. And I found myself, yes, we're reading through the book, we're learning stochastic equations, we're getting really deep, but it was so good at, okay, please explain this to me. Like, what exactly are these terms? Explain it, like a phi or something. Give me a visual. And I was just able to pick up the topic so much better. Maybe it just depends on the learning style too. I appreciate, hey, just, sit down and read the book, you have to understand. But on that same point, say I mean, maybe in your own personal experience, when you're teaching students, isn't it helpful, like you said, to just, we're talking, like, say, stochastic equations. All right, where did this come from? What are all these terms? Let me just have a quick reminder. Give me a cheat sheet. It just pulls this up in the background. It just helps, like I said earlier, you're getting the information faster in a format that helps you learn, and you can structure it to your problem set. In this case, if you want to learn faster in a classroom setting, I believe it can help with that. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, and so it's definitely good for the student, and they themselves now need to learn how to use it, uh, how to ride it. I guess like a bicycle, because I don't think they're gonna have too much of a choice. Because I will tell you, some of them that are looking for jobs now, when they're interviewing, what they're being told is to essentially, oh, yeah, fine, you know how to code. That's great. Okay, but now, but so does ChatGPT, quite frankly. Now, what I want to know from you is, what can you do with both together? Your knowledge of coding and ChatGPT at the same time, besides asking ChatGPT to code for you. Where can you take it? And that's interesting because some of the stuff that they're asking, they're not doing yet. Because the employee themselves, I'm sure in your job, you don't know yet. what you're going to be asking because this thing is moving so fast. So speaking of the students, one thing, but what about an everyday investor, right? That's out there and is looking at the stock market. What can they do? Ask AI, hey, which stocks should I invest in, or is it more like help me understand my investment? What kind of
Yeah, no, good questions. Well, I mean, to your first point, right, about your students seeking employment in kind of the quantitative or software development space. Admittedly, maybe I haven't been through as many, but I have been through a few software interviews before and after. So to say the LLMA, of course, before, right? I'm sure we're all somewhat familiar. You sit down, you're going through your several rounds of interviews, your lead code questions, you're asked to just, you're asked like your computer science fundamentals, so to say, 101. And previously, you just had to have that stuff memorized, to say the least. Um, as I went through other, so to say, interviews as time went on, as LLMs kind of caught on, it did change a little bit. For me personally, they started focusing more on debugging. So it's like, yeah, we know AI can code, but all right, let's see the code. All right, for some just simplistic answer, debug this code more or less. Why, go into the inspector, show me why this isn't you know, doing what we expect. Long story short, so it became a lot more debugging. Then later on, it was LLMs that got even better at that. You're right. And it's like, hey man, it could easily make a linked list. It could easily show you where the error is, or it could at least point you in the right direction, even when it gets it wrong. If you're a decent enough software dev, it at least pointing you in the right direction, so you can kind of pick up the slack or that last 10%, so to say, to get it right. Now, admittedly, this is kind of where my software interviewing experience kind of falls off. To my knowledge, it's the game has changed. Just one last item on this topic too. My girlfriend has been recently trying to interview, and she says it's mixed. Varies. Some companies truly embrace AI. It's like, hey, you could, realistic on your day-to-day job, you're going to be using AI. So feel free to use it in an interview, but you have to know what you're talking about. Why is the architecture like this? Or whatnot. Why did you design it like this? And others have taken an opposite approach. No AI, no computers. You're going to handwrite this link list or algorithm. So I hope that helps add some value that way.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because it is moving so fast, I think that you know you need to do something, and at the same time, you're not so sure where it's going to lead you. But you do know that you need to use it. Now, do you find? I mean, there's Claude, there's Chat GPT. Do you have you started to start to differentiate them in terms of their ability, I guess, is one thing, but more their profile or their ability to do certain things versus other things.
Yeah. Um, Context, you know, my day-to-day work, so to say, it does involve a lot of solutioning or, you know, uh, pricing or, coming up with theses, so to say. That also involves, of course, a lot of spreadsheets. Um, so what I've noticed, and of course, it is my own personal experience and views, um, Claude's Anthropic is especially good for spreadsheets at this data time. Very good at analyzing them, um, very good at understanding the data and kind of gleaming what you were trying to do and what you should do next, so to say. Very good partner there. The more programmatic CLI tools like Claude Code and uh, Codex, I mean, those are something else. I think once those catch on, I guess to the wider public, they are truly game changing because your entire local system, even with whatever you have on cloud or any environment, so to say, you can now interconnect all of those. And there's various tools, and I don't want to shill too much, but like Obsidian, where you can put everything in a markdown file and have all the LLMs read through your entire life, so to say, or history if you really want it to go that far. Or, I'm sure you've seen the buzz around open claw, which essentially has been kind of replaced by Codex and Claude Code, in my opinion, in a way. All that to say, do I know the differences or can I differentiate them? I would say at this point, big claim is I think for 95% of use cases for general day-to-day activities, doesn't matter if you're using the most bleeding edge. If you were asking, to your earlier point, everyday investor, what should I invest in? Now, it's a whole other philosophical debate. Do you want to take how much advice do you want to take from an LLM or financial advice? Another philosophical, but for the most part, I would say a lot of these systems can at least point you in the right direction. They're for the most part giving you enough information or insights for you to make your own determination at this point, whether you're using, I don't know, any of the major LLMs out there uh, at this day of time.
And I would go as far as saying that if you're an investor who says, "No, I don't understand. I don't like AI. I don't want to use it."
Yeah.
That's great, but everybody else is using it, and you may be at a disadvantage somehow because you may not be able to process as much. For example, and I do that a lot with the students. I say, "Hey, find me a bunch of stocks where the P ratio is above average, but yet the growth is below average, right?" And I say, "Well, what do you mean by growth?" "I don't know. You decide what growth is. It EBITDA growth, the earnings per share." You kind of build your. So if you don't use I guess you could go in Yahoo Finance and you open this thing and you use what that's what they used to have. Or they still, I think they still have it. They have a way. They have the screener, right?
Hmm.
But then you got to download the screener, you got to import it into the spreadsheet. While the other way around with chat or whomever, bring it down. Of course, you have to explain exactly what you mean so that it doesn't get confused. I want the P ratio of this year and the financial of that year, right? All the things that you thought you did naturally. But then you could work so much faster, and then you don't download 10 names. You could say, give me 100 names, give me 1,000 names, right? Then it becomes that goes into the world of quant. So now you could look at so much more data, so much faster. But you have to be careful because you got to make sure because sometimes they'll come to me and say, but I've asked for the PE ratio, but then when I go into the actual, your Yahoo or Bloomberg or whatever, it's not the same. It's not the same PE ratio. What's going on? Well, I don't know. Did you ask for a particular year? Did you ask for an average? Wow, that's too complicated. Well, no, but you're not talking to yourself. You're talking to a machine, and you have to. It's a smart machine, but so they have to. As same as an investor, you would have to learn on how to talk to that thing.
Exactly. No, completely. Very good point, too. Now, going back to, I guess, that prompt engineering example, Avery, I would say that the modern day professional needs to be good at their craft, whether it's quantitative finance, teaching students, it could be welding, plumbing, whatever. You have to know your craft, maybe, but you also have to know how to use AI properly. Or when I say AI, like LLMs or, the modern day, what that means, right? Say, for example, let's take that student example again. I want to pull down data from Y Finance and just analyze certain basket of stocks respective of their PE ratio and whatever growth rate I choose. Maybe a more beginner user would go to an LLM and be like exactly that. Hey, I would like to analyze 100 stocks with a PE ratio above 50 with a nice growth rate. Enter. Probably not going to get you the best result. It's going to get you a result. But what could you have done better? Okay. You have to know what you're doing. So going back to knowing your craft, right? As maybe a financial professional, okay, this is what I'm trying to do inherently, right? Basket of stocks, PE ratio, I don't know, let's say above between 10 and 20 in this sector. Okay, import Y finance, right? hey chat or whatever. Let's make a notebook, right? Let's make a Jupyter notebook. I want a Python script that, all right, let's import Y finance. Show me the code. I want to see exactly the basket of stocks we're inputting. I want to be able to change that, right? All right, run that. Okay, let me maybe let's solution. What PE ratios? Maybe 10 to 20 isn't the best. I don't know. Maybe I'm going with tech stocks, for example. All right, their PE ratios tend to be higher. And then we debate, okay, let's settle maybe on 25. All right, propose me a patch or give me some code that, all right, from this import of stocks, let's just filter for the tech stocks. Let's find a P ratio 25 to 30. And now let's find a growth rate. All right, what growth rate should we use? I don't know. Just earnings growth year over year. Keep it simple. Okay, how do we define that? All right, propose me the code that I can use either to manually or not manually, programmatically calculate it from their financial statements or whatnot. All that to say, you can do it the simplistic way, right? Just ask GPT or whatnot, pull down the stock data for me, find me, print me, make me some report. But because you don't know the craft, you don't un inherently understand what you're trying to do, you're probably not going to get the best results. Had you known the craft, all right, what does this mean inherently? I need to know what a P ratio is, right? I need to know kind of what I'm looking for, what I'm sourcing, and then asking AI more or less, don't just give me the fish, teach me how to fish. Help me write a program so I can programmatically pull whatever data I'm trying to look at, uh, exactly quantify the metrics I need, and being able to toggle them uh, would, long story short, get you a much better result, I would say, if that makes sense.
That is, that's the second interesting you said. The first one you said, this is enhance, not replace. And now
Hmm.
obviously you bring up something very interesting is, well, you got to know your craft. You can't just say, give me the best stock out there. No, you got to, what do you mean? You want the best PE ratio, the one with the fastest growth rate, the fastest EBIT. You have to know the craft. You cannot replace it. So it doesn't matter. You could have the smartest AI in the world. You still need to understand what it is that you're looking for and what it is that you need to ask. So it's good for students and it's good for investors as well. Don't go out there asking AI a bunch of things that you don't really understand what you're asking to begin with, right? Because it's going to give you its version of what its thing is important, but you need to guide it. Like you said, I like this thing you say about the fish, right? Don't fish for me, I need to understand how to do it because it's much more powerful. So basically, you can't get away with it. You could you now, of course, you cannot get away without it anymore, and you really can't get away with it either. In a different kind of
Yeah.
way. You need to. This is very
You
interesting.
need,
Okay, I got you.
no, exactly. I would say, I mean, you know, you need to know both, right? I mean, I know I keep hitting on it. You need to know your crafts or crafts, but let's hit on that other portion, right? I kind of, use that pulling down data example, but you need to also know what to ask AI, and also, you need, I guess the one last thing I would add, you need to know how to debug. Um, Maybe a good example for that, uh, you know, say I don't know, what if we just end up with a stock, right? Hey, this is boom, we ran through all the code. I don't know, we got stock XYZ, or this stock XYZ, five stocks maybe meet your criteria. Okay. It kind of goes down to knowing your craft, how to use AI to build a repeatable programmatic model or to get to that point. And then let's trust but verify. Let's debug. How do we know that answer is right? All right, from my craft inherently, maybe it makes sense, right? I essentially iterated on my investment process in that case, pulled down these stocks. I understood kind of how programmatically it pulled those results. Now, how do we debug it, right? Of course, ask AI, does this make sense? Maybe ask another one. Maybe debate, go back to your core assumptions. All that to say, knowing your craft, AI, like you said, can enhance it.
Great.
You can't, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know, I got you, I got you. This was interesting. Let's see, let's see what happens with all these AI tools that are coming out. Let's see, what happens to the stock market, especially now. Let's see how it's being used. Let's see how students actually use them. Besides, for example, right now the big thing is how to write resumes. I say, you know what, you could write the perfect resumes, but guess what? They're all writing the perfect resumes now. So how is that? How does that help you anymore? Anyway, but I wanted to thank you. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I wanted to thank you for this because it does provide two important points that we learned today. Is the fact that we're not replacing, we're enhancing, and you still need to know your craft. If you don't understand financial analysis, don't ask, um, you know, ChatGPT to do it for you.
More or less. Man, what a time to be alive. Dr.
I know.
Zoro, thank you again for your time as
Thank
well.
you very much for your time, Justin. Thank you.